cleaning out, dusting off my shelves in my office, and I noticed my Pioneer headphones here that I have from the probably early 70s. Nice minty pair of...
I think they have the original receipt.
I think they were stored in embalming fluid or something. Yeah, even the original seat.
So you do know the exact date.
I forgot what the number was. I'll have to look.
I think it was like 71 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking 40 or 50 bucks. But either way, they weren't cheap for the time. And then, you think about it, it's like, well, you compare that to like the speaker world, and you think, well, how far everything audio has evolved, in the last 75 years or so. And, two different speeds on the train here. You got the speaker train going rather slow, and the headphone train was going rather slow till the last half dozen years or so, where it just kind of turned into a bullet train.
It seems like for the most part, headphones were on a similar enough rate of evolution as speakers for a while. They were very slow and gentle. Not much happened. And then it seems like speakers, if anything, kind of started to slow down, and headphones really took off, especially in recent times. You look 10 years ago to now, the changes in the headphone space, they're profound.
None of this stuff that you see existed. It just didn't exist. The portable players and the portable DACs it was 10 years ago, barely exist.
Yeah, there's a huge market of boutique gear designed specifically around headphones. And wasn't that long ago when you either had very low cost stuff that really usually wasn't designed that well, or people were just retrofitting custom things or speaker headphone amps and stuff. Well, they were retrofitting speaker amps as headphone amps and things like that in the high end, because there really wasn't ultra high end flagship gear like there is now. Now you take it for granted. There's a huge number of things that are awesome.
Now
really do a good job.
Compare that to like the speaker world, right? Where we were in well before the headphone world.
Yes.
I started my foray in the mid '80s, and been going ever since. And you were with me not too long after, when you got older, grew up, and started doing trade shows with me.
20 years later.
Okay, maybe around the early 2000s, but yeah. Bottom line is that that's been a slow train. I mean, really. We'll cite some examples on here. We got a pair of old studio monitors here that. Well, it's not a studio monitor, and it was designed for a home environment, but I believe it's based on the Altec Lansing designs from the 50s that they used to use those drivers in studios, and people would think those were the greatest things for home, and that was the reference back then. Paper cone and a rather cool-looking horn-loaded tweeter in the
They do
concentric.
look unique.
Yeah, really
They
cool.
still go for a lot of money, too.
Yeah, they're expensive drivers.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was it that was the shit back in the day. And, look at what we got today. We look at some of the modern speakers. I mean,
sky's the limit on that one.
Yeah, but the reality of it is, when you think about it, a woofer's still a woofer and a tweeter's still a tweeter. And it's really been materials that have really evolved more than anything.
Well, that's the thing. Material advancement is speeding up these days.
Yeah, big
I
time.
think a big portion of the reason why you've seen improvements in speakers in recent times is simply the accessibility of better manufacturing methods. You have a lot more people doing more automated means of manufacturing and assembly, so you could get precision repeatability, and you have computer-aided manufacturing as well. You could get designs that are closer to right rather than just testing 1,000 samples and getting something that's not that well optimized. I think that's more accessible now, and so you're seeing a bit more of that kind of stuff. But in the two-channel type world, it's nothing like what you see in the consumer space. I think this is definitely a case of necessity driving the innovation. And you look at what most people on the streets are using. It's low-cost headphones, mainly, earbuds, IEMs, things like that. A lot of times Bluetooth, because that's what people want. That's what's easy and convenient.
Yeah, they'd have like simple Mylar drivers, which have been used a very long time. They're easy to make by the millions.
Right.
Rather cheap to stamp out, in China and so on. And so it makes sense that the driver, the speakers in these things aren't of any significant cost. It's more or less shipping and marketing and retailing.
And you could fix things with DSP and stuff now too. So
it's a different design.
Yeah, totally
They're made
different
to
world.
be manufacturable, fairly reliable, low cost, wireless, long battery life, things like that. They're trying to prioritize what the consumer is looking for. And believe it or not, most consumers don't prioritize sound quality. Maybe in the price range, they're looking for the best they can get, but the reality is making something for $40, you're going to be constrained.
Yeah,
You know,
we're
most
in
people
the
don't spend
we're
huge
in the
amounts.
severe end of a boutique side of things. I mean, you know, as are a lot of speaker manufacturers in the upper end of things. I mean,
There's a
it's-
lot of players.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. A lot more speakers. There are a lot more speaker manufacturers than there are headphone manufacturers. That's for sure. In the upper end of things.
Oh, for sure.
You know, in fact, then all around. I mean, look at how many speakers there's got to be.
Yeah, I know there's a lot now that I'm thinking about the
and
brand.
hundreds of them.
There's so
You know?
many.
Yeah.
It's comparatively easier to make a speaker, I would say.
Well, it depends
now.
if you're making the drivers or you're not yourself.
Right.
Yeah, well, most of them just stuff
Right. Yeah.
exists. Someone else's drivers in a box.
Yeah,
And that's
design
pretty
a
easy.
crossover.
Yeah.
You're making
Right.
a box, you're making it look a certain way, you're making it sound to your preferences.
The drivers aren't necessarily the focus.
Right.
They
It's
can
just
be.
having them produce sound. Well,
But yeah.
in the lower end of things, it ain't
Yeah,
right.
right.
They're like, okay, give us a cheap driver, we'll put it in a box and call it a day.
Mm.
But in the upper end,
And then that's all it is.
like we do, it's a whole different ballgame. Now
Yeah.
now you get into the exotic materials. You know.
But you look at how many headphone companies there are out there now compared to when we started.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people making their own drivers now. And again, when we started, it was mostly people modifying existing mass production headphones. There weren't really a lot of people doing it themselves.
yeah.
It's a different game. And there's way more
Stax
players
was
now.
probably the only one that made drivers because they had to.
Well,
Because
that's a
no
whole
one else was
different thing,
using
yeah.
electrostatic drivers and headphones, you know, so they were probably the only ones doing
That
it.
is true. Electrostatics are actually getting competition now.
Yeah.
There's like
It was a long
50
period,
years
yeah.
of it
Yeah,
was Stax.
having it on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when we first came out with the 1266, it made its way to France, and one of the French reviewers said, Stax no longer has a monopoly on the high end
Hmm.
with the 1266, you know.
That was the beginning of that. Though.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of
Yeah,
Different
but then but it was because of those people that had 009s and 007s, and you know they didn't have anywhere else to go.
Right.
That was it. That was it. It was the end of the road.
It's interesting because they were, I guess you would say, ahead of their time. They were developing high end before there was huge demand, before there was the They were developing high end headphones before it was commonplace for people to be spending high dollar amounts on these things. And now I think time and external factors have caused more demand. And a lot of people are interested in personal audio now. So there's so many more boutique companies trying their hand at really high-end designs, and a lot of them are working on their own driver designs. So it's encouraging. That's interesting.
yeah.
I think it's fun.
yeah.
Stax in particular. I'd say they've been around for a long time, but they've always been like relatively boutique, you know, compared to
Right.
like mass market and everything. So
Yeah, and
they've maintained that level for 70 years or something.
Yeah, and I think most of their business was done in their lower end models. You know, they had models in the sub $1,000 range, hundreds of dollars a piece, and
Yeah, they
from
still
what I
do.
understand, and that was I think that was their primary shtick. You know, I think what really limited them was the fact that you had to have
An amp.
an amp that
special
dealt with
one.
high voltage,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Which I guess only they produced, so they kind of had a box setup, so to speak, a box kit where you had to get the amp and the headphones. Which, you know, I mean, otherwise, what choices did you have?
Well, some
Back
people
then.
built their own, you know,
Yeah,
but
but that's
yeah.
onesie twosies.
Yeah.
That's not the market, you know. But yeah, so I think that was their limiting factor probably. And you know, it's the same thing now. I mean, really, but now you've got all kinds of players in the amp market to match up with the headphones that exist, the planers that exist. So I think the planer technology has really taken off.
Oh, for sure.
You know.
We talked about this a bit before, but the first trade shows we went to, what was that, like 2013 or something? CanJam, RMAF,
Yeah, probably.
something like that.
Yeah.
And there was a handful of amps in the high end. There really wasn't much.
Two.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was
powerful
a couple
amps, yeah.
things. Yeah, especially if you wanted something that was trying to drive high-end flagship demanding headphones, which at the time weren't so common. You really
HE6.
couldn't get a high-end powerful amp that was
No, we were working
spectacular.
with the Cavalli at the time. He was just finishing up the Liquid Gold, right? Liquid Gold.
Yeah, at the time he was
Yeah.
working on that.
Yeah, and that was the only solid state amp that
It
had,
wasn't out yet.
that'll
but
do
yeah.
like
Yeah.
6 or 8 watts or whatever. It was a crazy power, and
He had the
Liquid Fire at the time.
at the time.
yeah, which actually sounded pretty good. We have one here.
Yep.
It actually sounded really good, but it wasn't quite. Didn't have the absolute
Well,
crazy
yeah.
speed of a big solid state
Yeah,
of the power
not
supply.
what you see today in refinement. It was good
Yeah.
for the time, but things have improved.
Well, I guess bottom line is it could have show off the speed of what we could do with a planer. Because
Yeah,
once
it
you
wasn't-
combine the
yeah, it
grip
wasn't
of that
perfect
solid
for
state
the-
amp with our original 1266 driver, people were like, never heard bass like this before. But, again, speaker side is kind of similar, too, when you think about it. They were paper cones back in the day. It was all very similar make. It was easy to poke your fingers through the cone if you hit it hard enough.
Yeah.
It was relatively just like a grayish black paper. And everyone used the same material. And what changed was the surround materials, suspension, how easy the woofer moved, maybe the size of the magnet.
Different types of magnets.
Yeah, they weren't even using neodymium
Not
back
yet.
then. They had what the hell were they? I can't even remember. It's been so long.
Ceramic. I don't know.
That's the old magnets with ferrous,
cobalt and something.
Fe, yeah, cobalt, nickel,
There's a lot
cobalt.
of magnets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what the hell they were. But yeah, bottom line is it's been too long. But yeah, really the biggest thing I think that improved is the magnet strength, which improved, which allowed you to make like beefier voice coils, right? Because you could use less windings because now you got more magnet strength and run more current through it, which means you need more power. 'Cause back in the day, you had amps only had a few watts. Receivers, they had receivers, man.
Right, yeah.
They put out a few watts. That was it. You didn't have 100, 200, 300 watt amplifiers.
Yeah. Power's no problem now.
They were highly efficient speakers. They did what they could to make the woofers as efficient as what speakers had tweeters. That was even rare back in the day.
Whizzer cones.
Yeah, but the tweeters are always more efficient than the woofers, so they're usually dumbing tweeters down to match the volume level of a woofer. But bottom line is, when you started getting into, more than a few watts of power, and all of a sudden a speaker I don't know which came first back then. I don't know if it was low efficiency speakers, probably, or more powerful amps. It was probably the same as what happened with us with headphones, but I don't know. Maybe someone else could chime in on this. But I don't know which came first. I wasn't back there back in the day, but I know in the 70s you started
probably
getting
powerful
Japanese
amps.
receivers in this country that started
Yeah.
getting imported.
Because they went to solid state, they probably a lot more powerful.
Solid state, yeah, right. The tubes started floating away.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know what came first, or they were about the same time. But yeah, anyway, I'm sure someone will take credit
It's a
for this.
chicken
It's
and the
long
egg
gone.
kind
That
of
was 50 years
situation.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we had the same thing occur in headphones. And talk about repeating history, where we needed power. We had low efficiency drivers in a headphone space that needed power, which is uncommon 15 years ago.
Yep.
Everything was designed to run on 10 milliwatts, right? And now you see all these amplifiers that are available that have multiple watts of power to go in a headphone.
Power's easy.
Yeah.
And we were saying this for a long time.
Yeah, we've been trying to get
Power's very easy, but for some reason people weren't shipping it.
Yeah.
And I understand most people didn't need it, so
I don't think they saw the market at first.
Well, there was just very few headphones that even needed it, so it
Yeah.
didn't really matter. I remember, what was the WA5 had the older one had a physical setting for the K1000 or something.
Oh
like that.
yeah.
He
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
do that anymore. But
Why?
it was
What
like
was the deal with that one? Was it high impedance or something?
something? Yeah.
I don't even know. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Stuff
yeah,
like
that's
that.
true.
Like making an amp
Yeah.
that had a specific.
Yeah, because I
headphone
had
in
the
mind.
older WA5, and I believe it had that
Yeah.
selector switch. Yeah. Now it's just low high gain, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
well, there's enough low and high gain headphones
Yeah.
that makes sense. There's a fair number of headphones that aren't particularly sensitive, and there's quite a few that are. So that's a reasonable enough configuration now. But back in the day, there was just pretty much everything was designed around the gear that was available at the time, and that hardware was very limiting. It would only get so good. So it was challenging to design a headphone that was leagues beyond what else was available at the time, without getting better supporting gear around it.
But when you think about it, I mean, it's wild, where in the last 70 or 80 years or so, where speaker design is, sonically speaking, the sound quality of it, right? It took 70 or so years to get to where we are today with speakers, where it only took about
10,
less than
15, yeah.
10 years really for headphones and the systems to evolve to where they are today.
Yeah.
That is significantly faster.
But
Uh,
I guess the thing is, though, we kind of can draw from like speakers and stuff to make headphones. We kind of already had like
As a goal,
Yeah,
as
you
a
already
sonic
knew-
goal, but
you
you
already
still
knew.
got to make the sound in your head,
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and you got to have the ancillary gear. I guess the electronics exist.
yeah.
That's easy enough. Well, easy enough if somebody implements it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. We have the
So-
source material. We have the high res this. We've got. That's true. There's a lot
The
of things that have
foundation
been put in place.
was there. yeah.
Agreed.
So it did help out a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. It was really more material science shifting over to the headphone space. But again, all of this probably could have happened sooner. Who knows why? It's probably the same reason why the V8 motor disappeared in the 70s and went to four cylinders in the 80s, and it hasn't really come back until 29 or 28, 2008, you know? And so, I mean, it's just kind of funny when you think about it, but how cyclical things are in the world and the planet for people. You know, it's not even just audio, it's just all kinds of things where it's like, you think back, it's like, how come we didn't have V8s for 30 years? How come nobody wanted that? Why? The horsepower is great. Now all of a sudden, Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
you know, 700-800 horsepower for electric cars is like the norm. You know, so it's like, where did this all go? It's funny how you could not miss that. I guess for whatever reason, as generations go on, it seems like things get set by the wayside for whatever reason. You think music, that wouldn't happen, and playback, but it did. It kind of did. You know, it didn't evolve like you would think it would. But yeah, you're right. We have a foundation now with electronics and source material and ease of getting music, where the headphone space just kind of makes, I think, a lot more sense for people. They don't need a room anymore. You can do it anywhere. You can enjoy it anywhere. So I guess that's the convenience factor.
Well, I mean, the whole industry kind of moves in like the same direction. So it's like everybody had like receivers and two speakers in like the 70s and 80s, and then everybody went to like those home theaters in a box in like the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah,
and now everybody's just like, nope, I don't want any of that. I want a sound bar, done.
Yeah,
you know,
right,
so,
right. Stick it under the TV.
yeah, just
You
evolution.
don't need a wire, just Bluetooth, plug it in.
I don't even want to plug a wire into
Yeah,
it.
right.
Yeah.
Just hook it up to the wall, plug it in the wall, and call it a day.
Most companies are pretty conservative too. They're concerned about taking a risk, doing something that other people aren't doing. So I think once more or less the market proves that some sort of thing isn't super desirable anymore, it takes a while for it to come back.
That's true.
Right, because people are kind of leery. They don't really know, is there going to be a market demand?
I guess because, too, that's true. I mean, you think about it, a lot of the companies that are making these electronics over the years are big manufacturers. Sony, Yamaha. These guys have been around a long time. I mean, they got to have some serious manufacturing chops, so to speak, you know, and they're gonna ebb and flow in the way the market will, depending on what people want to buy.
Yeah, well, I've noticed lately all those big, mainly 70s Japanese brands all coming out with like new stuff that high end,
Like Luxman.
that looks like the old stuff.
And it's nice looking stuff.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's like retro with the brush finish, goldish like aluminum.
Yeah.
Nice looking stuff.
But yeah, all the big manufacturers are coming out with that now.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's working out for them.
Someone started it.
And once you see someone do it and it actually works, people go, oh, all right, well, give that a try.
Yeah.
It's like we made that stuff before. We can
It
do
isn't
it
a
again.
logical step, I guess, when you think, because a lot of people now that are in the high-end headphone space will get older and may want to share their music with others, right? Like their families. And there's only one way to do it. It's either everyone has a pair of headphones and everyone's sitting there in a quiet room, right? Which looks kind of silly from the outside.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Or you get a pair of speakers and start playing music and let everyone enjoy what you're listening to and share. You know, so it kind of makes sense that it will the high end of headphones will actually morph into the high end of speakers. You know,
It could.
You know, it makes kind of sense. And what better way to do it than a simple one box solution receiver with a built-in streaming and everything. And you know, you got an app for it. You don't need to just put it wherever you want to put it. Run a pair of cables to your speakers and your G2G, and the whole family can enjoy this too. You know, or if you hook it up to the TV, enjoy it for video as well. YouTube is primarily stereo right now, so it works with that. So anyway, I guess it kind of makes sense. I think that's probably where it's going.
Well, and when it gets too late, then you go back to your headphones.
Yeah, right. Yeah, at night, and not miss a beat,
Right.
Not skip a beat. And you know, that's the other thing too. When you think about it, where both of these technologies exist right now in terms of playback level is, I think headphones have actually begun to leapfrog the speaker systems.
Yeah, except, big stacks of subs.
Well, yeah, the tactile side of it is still lacking. And by all means, you could run a sub.
Could do that.
Yeah, you could run a sub with the earphones. I mean, it kind of seems silly, but you could do it as long as you're not bothering anybody.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people run headphones because they can't make noise, apartments, and so on.
That's next level looking weird to see one person wearing headphones with a sub on, so you can't hear the music, you just hear bass.
Yeah, no kidding. I've done that for years in my room because I've got dual JL Fathoms, and so I could just kill the main channel amps and just run the subs, and it's fun, but with like a 1266, it's not always really that necessary. But But yeah, it's fun because you can feel it. It would be better with movies,
Yeah.
I think, than
Yeah.
music. Because the music, you're just mucking things up a little bit by having boom, boom going on.
Well, yeah,
in the room.
you gotta
You know?
tune it in nice.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah, you got to tune the subs for the
Yeah.
headphones.
Right, which would be
Which-
different than the speaker.
Yeah, yeah. You almost got to have multiple settings for the
have
subs.
presets for your
I
subs.
think some of them probably do that nowadays, don't they? I know there's
They might.
apps for some of these newer
Yeah,
subs.
they do have apps.
But I don't know if they have apps for multiple settings.
Yeah,
in the
it's
same
it's
room.
not a thing that
It
would
seems
should
like, yeah,
come
you
up.
wouldn't think about it
That's
that
pretty
way.
unusual.
Yeah, right. Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, they could probably implement it. There's an idea for you, JL. Or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. If you're going to do an app for this, allow us to have a headphone setting too.
Yeah.
Headphone setting.
You got to adjust phase and
Yeah.
everything for it. They'd be way off. I mean, my JLs are set for the front speakers in the room, and they're not. You could tell the bass isn't in alignment with the headphone.
Yeah.
It's not bad because you're at a distance, and the headphones are right on your head, so they kind of take over. I mean, they play most of the sound because they're intimate, you know. But yeah, you could tell that obviously the phase is off a bit on the room subs. So anyway, we're just pondering the past and where we are and where we're going.
Well, we don't really know where we're
Nobody
going.
really knows where you're going.
Yeah, well, that's true. But you can
Well,
flip a coin.
Yeah.
Heads.
Seems like anytime you try to guess, you're always wrong.
Well, that's true.
There's better guesses than others, but
Yeah, that's
it's very
true.
hard to be right.
won't know until we get there.
Yeah, right. That was from a movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Thanks for watching our blabber, everybody. Give us a thumbs up and please subscribe to us so you know what's coming. And take care of yourselves. Thank you.